or greatness is always with you. It's not something that you get from other people. It's not something that you're gonna find in someone else or in your degree or in your title or
welcome to the Open Delta podcast, where we believe that you are here to be more, not do more. I am your host, Aileen, and as a coach, speaker, and consultant, I will help you manifest your dream life that can bring you more power, peace, and cash. If you're ready to dive into the mindset, neuroscience, and connection to the universe, vamos a darle.
Welcome back to Open Delta. My name is Aileen Hirsch and I am your host. And today I am admiring kind of the new background that we have going on in Chicago and I guess anywhere up north. If you live in the north now, it's getting very dark very early. And so even though I have not been recording super late, it's still very dark outside. So I hope you're enjoying the view if you are watching the video streams of this podcast. And today's a grateful moment. It's to this community, to our 10th episode, which is where we are today. It is the absolute pleasure to continue doing these recordings and putting my heart out every week. One of my big goals for the podcast was I really wanted to be consistent, and every single Wednesday after the launch day to be able to publish. And some weeks was fairly easy, some weeks was a little bit more challenging. And a lot of people have been asking me questions about how the podcast is going, how do I feel about it. Some other questions have been around, why did you start a podcast? Meaning they haven't listened to the first episode. Just curious about the entire process. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to just honor the first episode of Double Digit Numbers, episode 10. And I was also getting ready for the recording of the next episode, and I grabbed the book Los Cuatro Acuerdos, which, if you haven't read it, it's a very short book, however, very, very powerful book that my grandma gave me years ago. And if you've listened to the first episode, you know how connected I am to my grandma. We're my grandparents overall. And she gave me this book back in 2014. As well as the first quote that I read from the book that Tio Efrain gave me, the Motivation Manifesto, was also 2014, which is also, again, 10 years ago since we are in 2024. And so, I don't know, it just kind of like meant to be that wanted to honor number 10 for whatever reason, wanted to come through and say hi. So, really, the journey to this podcast, I've talked a little bit in previous episodes. However, the amount of love, support, encouragement, feedback, comments, wanted to discuss some of the topics even further, whether it's a text, a voice memo, a FaceTime call, has just been overwhelming in the most beautiful way. I did not know how the public was going to be receptive to my words, my thoughts, my wisdom, my experiences. And so this is a moment of just a lot of gratefulness in my heart to all of you who have spent minutes, hours, snippets, social media, whatever it is, engaging with the content. And I am hoping that, and you've told me, that the message continues to resonate. And one of the things that I do want to continue to expand is bringing you more people into the podcast, so you not only get to learn from me, but you get to learn from other people as well, because ultimately through those interactions, through those experiences, is that I've been able to grow. And so I also want to extend that opportunity through this podcast to you to learn from those beautiful people that I get to either interview or interact. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share. The second thing that I want to share is that I've been challenged in different ways. For example, we had the episode where Rocky and I, episode 4, we recorded for an hour and 40 minutes at the recording studio. And when we got the recording, more than half of it was corrupted. My cousin Alberto, who has a lot of experience with production and understanding all the technicalities in the background, could not recover it. We spoke to the vendor who potentially could recover it from some of the backup systems, and they couldn't. And so that made us default to our equipment. And honestly, I got a lot of feedback that all of you prefer this background other than the podcast studio that we have in our building. And so that was one learning. And then not too long ago, I recorded an episode, recorded for probably 40 minutes or so. And then when I went back to try and listen to it, the microphone was off. So triple checking now every time that I hit record that the microphone's on, because even though everything's plugged in, I still do have the beautiful video, but there's no audio along to it. And so there have been things like that, I've never managed to have the necessity to have so many things plugged in, the lights, the phone, the camera going on along with the software. And so it has been a growth opportunity for me. And one of the things that I wanted to practice was learning how to nurture that muscle of done, not perfect. Of course, we always have that 1% that we want to improve. And I am trying different things with the episodes on improving one thing at a time and see how that plays out. For example, this episode, I usually have a script of ideas, script of stories that I want to share. And this one, I just wanted to come and talk to the microphone based from my heart and the conversations that I've had with people, because that is what I want to try out, see how it goes. One of the things that I had a recent conversation about this, and this is one of Rocky's friends, and I won't share the name for now. And has had this goal, this ambition in his heart for a couple of days. And Rocky and him had a private conversation, and Rocky mentioned to him that I've had a similar situation with creating this podcast. And it was really around, who do you think you are to do X? Whether it's starting a social media page, whether it's starting your own run club, whether it's me starting this podcast, whether it's you trying to do your own journaling books, or whether it's writing a book, like who you are to do whatever. And it was this notion of, oh, I will be ready when I have all these credentials, when I am so-and-so, when I have that position at work, when I make X amount of money, when I have this type of experience. And the 2 cents that I gave to him if you want to do whatever that thing is, if you think it's going to help a group of people get from point A to point B, what is stopping you to do that? Could you, in 10 years, with all the credentials under your belt, maybe not help one person, but you could help 10 people? that's fine. Maybe hundreds of people if it's a 10-year span. However, the fact that you can help just like one person move from one point to the other, it's still very beneficial rather than just like waiting, not taking action in that particular goal that you have, and then just waiting for whenever you feel ready, which we've talked about. You're never gonna feel super ready. So this podcast has taught me that I have not met the full force of my potential. And it honestly has been very vulnerable of some of the things that I've shared. However, very exciting that I'm getting closer to where I need to be or where I want to be because I'm doing this podcast that I've been wanting to do for years. So what I'm trying to give you is there is so much peace on the other side, and there's still a lot of unknowns. However, through the doing, I have found a lot of joy and a lot of encouragement from people that I might even know. And one thing that I'm also still learning, it's social media and putting the podcast out there and promoting it, and what is the best way to do it, best time to post, and all of those things. However, this book kind of fell on my lap in the sense that I was walking through Target and I knew that I wanted another book because I just finished reading Liliana's Invincible Summer, which was a very transformative book, just very heavy because there was a lot of injustice that still is happening today in the US and in Mexico. And we hear, this is a total tangent, we hear a lot about the stories of women that go through, they have a tragic situation, and maybe we know the statistics from TV. However, getting to know so in depth a story of a woman that it was just a girl going to college, studying architecture, literally living her dream, and falling in love with the discipline that she was studying, and the devastation of what happened to her, which was feminicidio. So this book, I've seen it a couple times, and I really haven't really listened to his music. However, the book of the title and the chapters really spoke to me. The title of the book is It Was You All Along. And if you look at it, it's kind of like a mirror, because the subtitle of the book is What If You Are the One You've Been Waiting For? And I love this little phrase that he has here. He said, my perfectionism hindered me from manifesting more success, because more success meant more fame, which meant even less room for error, which only amplified my need for perfection, which caused immense anxiety. Your fear is the container of your greatness. That's the quote that got me. Your fear is a container of your greatness. When you are afraid of success, you subconsciously command the universe to keep you stagnant. You are communicating that you're only good at this level because you can manage this level. So if you let go of that fear, how much bigger could your success be? And when I read that, I literally went like, because I don't know if you've seen that video of they have an ant, and essentially the ant is in the piece of paper, and they do with a Sharpie or whatever marker they're using a circle around the ant. And when the ant is walking and then it sees the black line, it stops and then it tries to go a different way. And it keeps looking at the black line over and over, and no matter where the ant goes, it sees a black line and she says, oh, I can't go further. And it's the illusion of, if it's a black line, I can't go further. And I think it's a similar situation with us when there is some sort of unconscious fear. We see a black line, but that doesn't mean that we can't go forward. That means that we don't know what's on the other side. And what, in this case, Russ is saying is that in that other side, it's greatness. Fear is the perimeter that we are defining with our fear. But that doesn't mean that we're meant to stay there. That just means that that is the limit that we had imposed, whether it's ourselves, whether it was society, whether it was through our parents, whether it was through our culture, whether it's a patriarchy. Like, it doesn't matter how it got there. In my opinion, there's ifs and situations. However, when it comes to our dreams, most of the time, that Sharpie line, it's an illusion. And we sometimes even forget that at one point we wanted to be on the other side. For years, I forgot that I even wanted to have a podcast. And it wasn't until I gave myself that period of breathing room that I was able to remember, what is my bigger purpose? What is my bigger calling that I want to start moving into? And in this time in my life, it's just that the podcast, it's the way that I am channeling that energy, that wisdom, and letting myself be and think and share that with you. So I thought this quote was very powerful, and I want you to see yourself how either your best friend sees you, how your loved one sees you, because a lot of times we need to borrow somebody else's eyes to see the greatness in us. However, once you borrow them for that brief moment, I want to acknowledge that you have everything within you. You have the tools that you need to for what you're meant to be. And I just want to honor that. And I literally just thought of like 10, which is today's episode. And that's also like binary. That's like numbers. 10 is all the computers essentially go down to that. And it's very black and white. Yes or no. True, false. However, life be lifing. And life is not yes, no, true or false, black and white. It's very much gray. So this is my way of saying, what's that dream that you've been thinking about? You've shed it. You made it this far through the episode. You wrote your shedding list of the things that no longer work for you. So now that you have either that extra time in your calendar or extra mental space in your head, maybe you have a little bit more space in your heart to really make room for your dreams. This is something that I also do in my vision boards. I used to just like fill my vision board like all the way, whether it was for my phone or whether it was for my background. And now I leave room somewhere in the vision board, because that is my way of saying, universe, God, divine, whatever it is, like I call you in and I invite you to fill it with magic. Because I always have a plan, but God's plan is always 1,000 times better. So leave that room for the magic. Like set the goal with the vision of where you want to go, your direction, and let people, let God, let things fill in the details along with you. And that is the how. Like let it be magical and experimental and fun and chaotic and vulnerable and with a lot of unknowns. The last thing that I'll share today, I know I read you a quote from the book because I thought it was just a beautiful encapsulation and reminder that our greatness is within us. Our greatness is always with you. It's not something that you get from other people. It's not something that you're gonna find in someone else, or in your degree, or in your title, or in your valuation of your startup. It's really going to come from you, your self-love, your self-concept, your self-identity that is ever evolving. And one of the quotes that I absolutely loved, and it has stayed with me for a very long time, it's by Chris Wilkes. He's the podcast host and probably a lot of different things of modern wisdom, which I love that title. And his quote, that I don't know if it's from him or he repeated it, he said, "The magic you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding." I think that goes back to the quote that I read of fear. It's keeping you, it's in avoidance, it's keeping you in that avoidance. But that thing that you're avoiding is exactly the reason why you need to take action and go with it, because that is where you will find the most magical gift, and that is meeting your potential, meeting your greatness, and absolutely sharing that with the world. So with that, I'll see you in the next one.